There it is.
That's been our best intro music so far.
I agree. I agree. I didn't expect the synthesizer to come in.
Yeah. I was a little, at first I was a little like, okay, another one. But yeah, then it started going up my spine.
Well, everybody, welcome to Ian and Jerrod's Humpday Extravaganza. I'm Ian.
I am Jerrod.
And we're here pretty much just to talk about whatever. Today we're talking about cult classics, indie stuff. So we're excited to bring that. But again, we encourage anybody to put comments in. We love seeing comments, and also, this is a participative show. It's not just you, Jerrod, and I. We're the only ones on camera, but we absolutely want to know what you're thinking about. Oh, look at this. Look at this.
She's just checking to make sure I didn't actually die. Yep. There was a little confusion recently, and we have fortunately cleared it up, and much to my relief, I did not die.
Nice. And this is live, Kelly, so you know it to be true.
That's right. Not a Weekend at Bernie's thing either.
Yeah, no. Well, welcome, Kelly.
Yeah.
So how was your week? Am I breaking up?
Yeah, you're getting a little glitchy here.
Getting glitchy? All right, tell me about your week, and I'm going to fix it.
Glitchy. Okay. So a lot of my week, I've been eating out because I don't want to make more dirty dishes, because tomorrow I am flying out west. My youngest daughter, Hannah, is graduating from high school. Woohoo! So that'll be a lot of fun. See my girls. It's going to be a really great, cool time. I'll probably have stuff to talk about after I come back from that. The biggest thing I did last weekend that was any exciting at all was making fried rice. And just saying it out loud, I realize how unexciting, I guess, that probably really sounds. But you know what? It was good, and I did it up, and that's all there is to it. So whoopity-dooby-doo. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about things that have cult followings that maybe we've been into or other people have been into or whatever. And I have a lot of opinions on that. Now, my opinions don't necessarily fall into things that I have cults that I've been a member of. I don't know if there's a better way to put it. Things that I have followed and been a big fan of that were things that people did have cult followings for. I have a lot of complaints and gripes, though, about the way these things have come about. And I am definitely going to be talking about them as Ian. How are we doing there, Ian? You look normal.
I'm back.
Did you take it off the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I just plugged it into a LAN cable. I just had to go get a LAN cable. So I didn't hear any of that except for the end. But I'm glad it sounded like it sounded like you had a little bit of your regular. You're pretty passionate.
Yeah, there's some things about the whole cult following stuff that just get on my nerves. Mm-hmm. I have this opinion. Since the advent of the internet, it's gotten both better and worse.
Yeah.
So I will start with worse because that's how I roll. There was things that I was into when I was a kid that as the internet grew and then social media came around, it was great to meet people who were also into it. But there's people who are too into things. They're too into them. And that's so weird and annoying. Just let me enjoy it for what I want. I'm not somebody the easy example is Star Wars. I think that as popular as Star Wars was, you could consider there to have been a cult following for people who dove into the books. Things like that. And then as soon as the new movies came out, we just realized that, it turns out it's full of awful, awful people. And that's what I think the truth is about a lot of things that have had cult followings. We expand, we really enjoy them, we get into it, and then we find out there's so many awful people who are into it. And the common thread amongst awful people who are into it is it's gatekeeping. It's the concept that they just want to keep people who aren't as into it as they are out, and it becomes a big dick contest. I know this. Well, I'm into that. Well, if you like that, you're a hack. I hate those people, and you're losers. Let people enjoy things. And if you're somebody who really wants to dive deep into things and because you're that passionate about it, I think that's cool too. I don't necessarily think that that's the problem. I think when it manifests itself as forms of gatekeeping, either abject gatekeeping, like you get out, or just taking every conversation about it and just delving into the minutia and just losing everybody. And it's great. You showed everybody how awesome I'm trying to think of some right off the top of my head. I don't want to ruin things for later in the show. Like diving really deep into it and just destroying every enjoyable conversation that you have about it. And you know what? It's not just like in these subreddits that you see it. We've all seen it on people's Facebook posts and everything. Just drives me up the wall.
Yeah, and you would think when people get into fandom and they get excited and they find people that are like-minded, you would think that would just be a good thing. Like those people would find each other, but no. Like just this week, they're going nuts over the casting of the third sister on Star Wars. I know you're not watching Obi-Wan, but again, another horrible, horrible racist thing that's happening. It happened with Rose in the sequel trilogy. Anybody that seems to be ethnic, we get this fandom that is just horribly racist. And the funny thing is that like science fiction is supposed to be the better. Like it's supposed to be, it just boggles my mind. And I'm like, I just really like what I like, and I would like to talk to people about it, but I don't want any of you.
Out of all of them, the Star Wars racist one is the dumbest one. Yeah. It's like you've got characters with like tentacles growing out of their face and curly horns on their head, and you're like, nope, that's cool, that fits in. But it's like, whoa, black person,
and
that's what you're flipping out about. Come on,
like it just doesn't make sense. So no, I agree with you. I do. That's why I'm like I really wait to talk about my opinion about anything that's a little bit geeky, because I don't want anybody to make an assumption about what I think about that stuff. I don't know you. I don't want you to I don't want you to include me in your racist rhetoric.
Yeah, and it doesn't. And like you can't talk about the cult things without talking to people who like really ruined it with racism, misogyny, and things like that. And I know there's some people out there who like are very anti-woke. But I also think that a lot of those same people would look at it and say, yeah, there's really no reason for those people to absolutely be like that.
Right.
And there's just all parts of cult followings that get on my nerves.
Well, this is going to be a grind my gears episode.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it. We haven't had one in a while. I feel we're heading that direction.
So, number one,
Jerrod, we got some comments here. I don't understand what Kelly's talking about. First of all, Who's Route Tester? Hey, welcome. I don't know if we know you or not, but hello. And then Amy pointing out that complaints not unusual. But then let's look at Kelly. Here I was ready to defend Scientology. See, this is what I mean. You can't trust people.
Right. She ruins the purity of just enjoying Scientology.
Right. Like I watched Top Gun. All right. We should like what we like. That is true, Kelly. You like what you like. Problem is when you try to bring somebody else, it gets complicated.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I've got a lot of judgment for people based upon the things that they like that sometimes I'm cool about and sometimes I just want to be a dick about. So we'll see which part comes out of me tonight.
Yeah. No one's fat shaming Jabba. I mean, he actually I hear for his race he's pretty skinny. That's what I hear. So
yeah. Like raw frog eating shaming.
Right.
Jabba deserves that.
That's true.
Absolutely.
What is that speaking? I don't know.
That's his bird who is really into
yes
as well.
Yes. During the summer we get a special guest star. That is Oscar the cocktail. Doesn't say a word all day until I get on any kind of Zoom call or video call. Then just thinks he's part of the meeting.
Hears my voice and just has a lot of opinions.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Oscar. Yeah, yeah. Not my favorite animal on the planet. I'm going to be honest with you. This is it's a point of contention in the family, but
I think when we talk about anything having to do with like cult followings or cult anything, the first thing that always comes to my mind is the Cult.
Yes.
Sweet Soul Sister. That is the coolest, one of the coolest little jives in rock history. The hustle and strut, hustle and strut. Oh, so good, so good. I am here for you, the Cult.
What do you think What do you think that picture was taken? I'm trying to figure out the city.
1989.
Yeah, but where? Like what's?
Well, they're
background? San Francisco.
The Cult's a British band, so I just assume that's somewhere in London.
Okay, all right. I had no idea.
I'm like familiar with 2 of their songs, but I love them with every fiber of my being. Mm-hmm. And there are times where I will still just blast those 2 in a loop in my car, driving along, singing along. Sweet Soul Sister and Firewoman. Oh, give it to me.
Hold it, Sweet Soul Sister, is that like the Train song?
No, not at all. Not at all. And it's funny because like I'm really into 2 of their songs. So it's almost like I'm a part of a cult following, but because it's the band The Cult, I refuse to participate in that kind of wordplay.
Oh, okay. Taking a strong stand.
Will not
do it.
Much to Amy's chagrin, the master of the wordplay.
Yeah, no.
I cannot.
No. Well, it would be funny if people that follow the cult were not called cultists. They were called something else.
That's right.
They were called independents.
They're British. Should be like Smackadoos or something like that, probably.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Smackadoos. That's it. Yeah.
So, like, kind of looking back, before our time even, I think of a cult following, the first one I kind of ever became aware of in my life as a kid, and my parents were not, but they had some friends who were, and that was Deadheads. Going around following the Grateful Dead right there. I mean, they look like they smell terrible.
I have family members that followed the Dead, but I was never into the Dead until I heard the song Ripple, and then my friend John gave me American Beauty as an album, and that was a great album, but that was it. I listened to that album, never got any deeper, anything in that, never understood. And I'm not a jam band guy. I'm going to tell you that. Like, bands that, like, songs should be over within 5 minutes. If you're going to go for a 20-minute, I'm not interested.
I cannot enjoy anything for more than about 4.5 minutes. I just can't.
Right. Nothing. Even like I'm from the generation where Dave Matthews was popular, and I loved Dave Matthews back in the day. I've never gone to a show because jam.
Yeah. I've got like 3 aunts who are like really big into Dave Matthews Band. They go to a lot of his shows, and that's cool and everything. And I think cult following is different than fandom. And we're going to talk a little about my thoughts on that one. But here's my thing with Grateful Dead. There's like 2 songs of theirs that I like. And that's really it. And I'm not willing to pretend to like other Grateful Dead songs. Maybe there was a time in my life where I would have to try to be cool, but not anymore. If you're not riding my train high on cocaine, that would have been so much cooler if I didn't fuck that up just then.
Yeah, no.
Or Touch It Gray, which is like the only like cool video that they have.
That was, I think that might have been their only video. That was their radio play hit.
Their only top 20 hit ever.
Yeah. And it's not even that great a song.
I promise, folks, I will not sing a lot tonight, but just to make sure you understand that one, let's see. I will get by. You can Shazam it. I'm so accurate when I do it right there.
I know the song, and that didn't sound familiar to me. So let's talk a little bit about this. Cult versus fandom. So I haven't really thought about it, but it seems to me cult is more than the thing that you're gathered around. Like fandom is about the art form, whatever it is, right? And cult is about the community. Like it transcends, you know?
Maybe when I think of something with a cult following, I
Yeah.
think of something that doesn't have a lot of followers,
Yeah.
but the followers that it has are widely dispersed. Like
Gotcha.
if let's say there's a local jazz band in Providence that a lot of people really like, I wouldn't say that's a cult following,
Right.
even though maybe a few people, who are really, really into it. I think that's a fandom. I think things that have a cult following are a little more widely dispersed, but they're very passionate about it and they're very much into kind of continuing it. Some of it's a community, some of it's just being into it beyond what's presented. By
Do you
which
think
I
it's
mean,
a singular thing? Do you think people that are in a cult, that's all they're into?
I don't know about that. I'd be
Yeah.
willing to bet that a lot of them are more susceptible to cultish behaviors.
Mm.
But I think about let's go back to the Star Wars one. There's a lot of Star Wars fans. It's big, but I think the cult followings are the people who are into it more than just what the fans are into, more than just the major movies.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the difference.
Seems like cult takes over your entire life. Like that seems to be, at least when you think about Scientology, when you think about, and I don't want to get into debates about Scientology, but you could argue it's a cult. When you get into any of the crazy cults, like from Texas, the Waco and
yeah. And I think there's a difference between like cult followings and being in an actual cult. Like just because you're really, really into Velvet Underground doesn't mean you're going to get together and drink poison Kool-Aid because you're so into them.
Right. Gotcha.
And one of my big, I hate corporate, I don't know way to put it, but when corporations go out there and create something to have a cult following just to do it, I hate that people fall for it. I hate that they do it. It is the worst. Oh, would you like an example of one? I'd be more than happy to provide one. The McRib. Come on. They're not that great, but McDonald's has created this thing as if there's a big cult following of people who cannot wait till the McRib comes back to their area, going to the McDonald's in other areas that are kind of close by that might be carrying it. That's such a corporate generated cult following. And I have no respect for it. You know what? I have followed for the McRib coming back and thinking, I think I like that. Let me try it again. No, it sucks.
No, it's fat. It's fat with barbecue sauce on it.
And I've got a low floor when it comes to enjoying food here. Like I'm a big hamburger helper guy.
I'm gonna let you handle this comment.
Amy.
Nice. Nicely done.
Amy travels the world. I mean, she's got a lot of miles underneath her, and she's coming for the McRib. I'm so, I Amy Grrr.
Oh, look at this! I've never even heard of this.
That's a pretty good one too, because I remember the Taco Bell Mexican pizza. There was friends of mine that is every time they went, they had to get themselves a Mexican pizza. And yeah, Taco Bell coming back. That's a really good kind of corporate push when they took it away, kind of created the artificial scarcity. People talk about it again. Boom, they bring it back. They did that with Crystal Pepsi a few years ago.
I get it. So good for the consumer, not good for the worker. I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And
then Kelly, she's a cult member.
Kelly, I bet she just picks up Mexican pizza on her way to the Scientology meetings. That's what she does. That's what she's into.
Exactly. Good call, Jerrod. Good call.
Now, I will say I am not somebody who's been into things that have had cult followings. I've never really been into indie bands or indie movies or things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with them. I think with a lot of them, there's something that can be enjoyed that I'm just not able to see or get to. But
I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
I'm never done.
This is controversial.
I think that's good and accurate.
I think it was true at the beginning, but then they took on a life of their own. Like I feel like they half of them were musicians, half of them weren't. But then they just kind of went on their own thing.
I feel like it was a cult that like sucked in. When it's a corporate created cult, the Monkey's a great example of it. It did exactly what they wanted them to do, right? We're going to take something, we're going to generate buzz, we're going to make it popular, and yet still allow people to feel like they're in on this little community, this little cult following.
All right, so I think we have to go deeper on this, though, because the Monkees is a blatant ripoff of the Beatles.
Yeah.
Right? So what about the Beatles? Are their fans cults? Is it, or because they're not corporate, it doesn't have the same thing?
There are people who are like very, very into the Beatles, but I think they're so big and so popular that there's nothing about them that could be a cult following. Like in sports, somebody who loves Michael Jordan. A lot of people love Michael Jordan. He was so big, so popular that it could never have been a cult following. MCU. Like people into the comic book side of it, I could say, yeah, some cult following there, being really into Marvel, really into X-Men. But now if you say that there's no part of being into the MCU movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that I think can be considered a cult following because it's too big. It's too popular. You can really get into Bucky, being Steve Rogers' old buddy. You're just in the movie. It's not a cult following.
Right. No, that makes sense. Amy says Elvis had a cult following. That's true.
Yeah, and that's one that we could dive in a lot deeper to, because I think his legend is bigger than his popularity was outside of the cult followings where he was so huge. I mean, think about by the time he moved to Vegas and everything, that's something else entirely. But that became, Elvis is still alive and all those things. No, I wasn't there in the 60s, so maybe Elvis was a lot bigger in the moment than I realized that he was. And I think there's some circles that he was definitely huge. But I also think he is one who, upon his passing, has also gained a mythology. And we could do a whole episode on that. And
that movie's coming out. We should go see that movie and then have an episode on that.
Yeah, we should. I always say we always come up with these ideas of things we should do shows on and then completely forget. But I do think there are a lot of things. The mythology makes something bigger than the actual events when it was happening. And boy, I have some opinions on that. But to get back to cult followings.
All right.
So the first thing that I got into at all that had been a cult following, and it might still be, but I think it's gotten too big as a cult following, Rocky Horror Picture Show. I remember I used to love bad horror movies when I was a kid. So going to the video store, my sister and I would look around, and the video that they had there didn't have Dr. Frankenfurter on it. It was just the lips, Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I just kept on seeing it there. And I kind of heard things about it, like, what may this be? And I watched it. And what's kind of crazy about Rocky Horror Picture Show compared to other things that generate cult followings is Rocky Horror Picture Show, while being outrageous, which is what generated the cult following, is also very good. The musical numbers are very good. The people singing were the exact right people to have doing those songs. I don't like Meatloaf. I don't like any Meatloaf's music, but you know what? He was good in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
I've never dressed up as a character for Rocky Horror Picture Show and gone to a theater and done all that. And if that's your thing, that's cool. But I think that it wouldn't be considered cult following anymore. I think it has moved to a different kind of fandom. Because I think with the internet, it's gotten so big.
But here's the thing, Jerrod. I think this is where and I'm starting to see a theme here, where things that started off as a small community gets taken over by the mainstream.
Yeah.
Where do these? And I kind of feel like once it goes out to the mainstream, that core is still the cult. And I kind of am like, I don't want to take away from those people that still go to the showings and do and really live the life when and then everybody else that just is like, I love it, but they never really put the time and the energy in,
Amy with a great point right there.
Yeah.
Difference between a cult classic and a cult following. But I do think a cult classic is kind of partially defined by having a cult following. And I don't know that I would necessarily consider Rocky Horror Picture Show to be a cult classic anymore. I think there's an argument to be made that it's a classic right now.
Well, but I also think a cult classic by definition is not popular.
True.
Right? I think almost all, again, there's going to be exceptional rules, started out and only a few people really liked it, and then it gained popularity from that. And that's a cult classic, right?
And that's one of the things that I think the internet really changed for a lot of people. Because then, like, I thought it was really cool. And then, you find out people all over the country think it's cool. Then you find out everybody kind of thinks it's cool. And it's just, now it's not a cult following. No, it's just cool.
Yeah. I think that cult cosplay. Yeah, I think at the beginning it was very cultish when I used to go to, and I used to work at a comic book store and do comic book conventions and stuff like that. You'd have a very small community that would dress up, and everybody would be like, "Whoa, that's kind of interesting." And now I went a couple years ago, and it's like 80% of the people have some sort of cosplay on.
Yeah.
So it is, but again, you take that out of the comic book or the convention world, and it's almost like, I mean, you can say it's not a cult. It's the norm in the convention, but it's not the norm when you're not in that setting.
When I was in the Marines, I had a friend. He was a staff sergeant. Last name was Johnson, and just a massive jacked dude. Like, he was one when you'd go, especially when you deploy, you'd be on some FOB somewhere or something. Even we were on one of the biggest Marine ones in Afghanistan, and they'll do things like bench press competitions with everybody there, and he just would blow people out of the water. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how. I think he was the strongest guy I met in my entire Marine Corps career. Like, he did a bench press competition. His starting weight that he used was something like 465, and immediately eliminated pretty much everybody just with that. Him, his wife, and his kids dress up and go to Comic-Con. And they don't always even dress up as specific superheroes or anything like that. Sometimes they do. The whole family looks cool. Sometimes they just go out and dress up like superheroes when they do it. So it's almost like the cosplay thing has generated its own, I don't want to say cult following, but just the cosplay itself has become its own singular thing, rather than people who have gotten really into something, and that's the way that they show it, by dressing up as Batman and hanging out a lot.
Here's a hot take. It's not necessarily that cosplayers are into science fiction or superheroes or whatever you would traditionally do it. They just really like Halloween, and it creates them to be able. So the cult is Halloween.
That's right.
Yeah, because all that is like, I love dressing up for Halloween. I wish I could do it more than once a year. Guess what?
That's right. I think there's an escapist element to it.
Oh, absolutely. And these characters. I know, as somebody that grew up reading comic books and really, being, trying to figure out my own self and really relating, like comic books for me, Marvel comic books in particular, were morality plays, right? I mean, it was like, I aspired to, like Peter Parker was always like doing the right thing, even at great personal costs, and for me, I looked up for that. But you can't, before movies or anything, there was nothing you could do to really, you could wear a t-shirt, right? You got a Spider-Man t-shirt or whatever, but now you can dress up and really take it to a new level. I get it. It's not for me, but I get it, right?
Yeah. Like, when I was a little kid, if I dressed up as Spider-Man, I'd be going pew, pew, pew,
right,
and trying to really pretend to be Spider-Man. As an adult, if I dressed up as Spider-Man, it'd be, oh, that's a cool Spider-Man costume. Yeah. But there are some people who still will be in their 40s and want to do the pew, pew, pew.
I'm going to say, everybody that does it, Jerrod, still gets that little kid feeling when they do it. It has to be that. And that's fine. There's no shame in that. I don't know if they're going to, but it's just like, I don't know. I get the same feeling when my nephew's at the age where I can start showing him some of my favorite movies from childhood, and you start reliving them by watching it through a new person's eyes. Like, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm just leaving this movie like I did, like Ghostbusters. Oh my God. I just remember leaving the theater like that. And you feel the same thing. I think it's in the same family of feelings,
Yeah. I think it's like a lot of things we've talked about, including honestly comic books, and that it's something that started off as cult followings and has now become so big and so mainstream that it's not really a cult following thing anymore. It's just something a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, we got a few. So let's I'm going to come back to Amy's because I want to talk about this for a minute. But I think anyone doing it, we talked about that.
Yeah.
And I just like to wear spandex. That's fair.
Enough.
That's
fair enough.
Yeah. And then Kelly, sometimes I like to dress as someone unattractive, just an escape. Yeah. Kelly says she dresses unattractive, but she dresses really nice and then wants compliments. That's what she does it for.
I'll tell you what, I try to do the same thing. Sometimes I try to dress as someone unattractive, just an escape. But what I end up coming off as is just an attractive guy who's dressed unattractive.
Yeah. It's that's a curse, Jerrod. That
the
right there is a curse.
Just, you can't fully escape it.
You just it's a curse. But Amy, as a husky, someone that was in the husky category as a kid, I had about 2 months where I could wear underoos and then they didn't fit anymore. So I didn't get to do that.
I don't know if underoos are even still a thing.
They are.
Okay, good, because I'm terrified to Google it, number one.
Yeah.
But then it's like, who do I ask? Who do I go, hey kid, underoos still a thing? You can't go asking little kids about their underwear. So in an effort to still be I've got to drive by a school on my way to work, and I don't want to have to find a much more circuitous route.
All right, now this is the one I think we should talk about. So Amy's saying cult classic is underground popularity. Cult following, people have made it their lifestyle. Interesting. Take it in.
I'm taking it in right now.
Yeah. So cult classic, underground popularity. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Right? Cult following, people have made it their lifestyle. Yeah, it's that taking it to that level. Okay.
Really annoying to talk to people about it.
Mm-hmm. Yoda underoos were perfect for that long walk home. Okay.
Walk of shame, that is.
although they do make adult underwear with characters on them now, so it's kind of like underoos.
You're not reeling me in on this one.
No, it's true. They do.
I'm not falling for it. You enjoy your Yoda undies, buddy.
All right, moving on.
So I'm going to talk about one thing that was one of the rare times where I was into something that, I can't say it was cult classic because it was bigger than just like one movie or one song or something. I wasn't as into it enough to be a cult following, but I think it kind of touches that world and what we're talking about. Was Mystery Science Theater 3000 from a comedy perspective. And I saw the movie first, and I will still say it was the funniest movie I ever walked into. Now, even now I know all the lines. So comedy is one of those things that gets less funny as time goes on. Just like jump scare movies are less scary as time goes on. After that, I was like, this is great. I love the whole concept. This is hilarious. So I started watching all the shows. I had a buddy who recorded a marathon when it was either on Comedy Central or Sci-Fi at the time, and watched all of those. So that was something that I was really into. It was different. It was something that not a lot of people really knew about. Probably fewer people who were into, but I really thought it was a great thing. I was really into it. Now, on the long journey here, it's come back. I have never watched it since it's been back. So I don't know what that makes me in that sense, because I can't say that it's gotten so popular that that's why I've jumped off of it, because I'd be a major douchebag if I said something like that, and I've got a reputation to uphold, and that's not why I didn't get back into it. And I don't know if it's just I think I'd probably enjoy it, Maybe I'm just grumpy.
No,
I'm
I'm gonna defend you, Jerrod.
That's finally someone.
Yeah, I'm gonna defend you on this one. I think the problem. I think the problem with Mystery Science 3000, the reboot or continuation, right? They didn't do anything really to change it, and you are in love. That nostalgia for the original it could be just as funny. It can even be a little bit more funny, but you will always compare it and remember how it was. Your brain has thought about it many times since then, made it into something bigger. And I think it's great if someone's never seen it. They could be, maybe those are the favorites, but I do think that a lot of these things that get rebooted, if they don't come up with something new, it's going to be really hard to like it as much as the original.
Yeah.
And comedy is the worst when it comes to that, because the first time you hear something funny, you may hear it again. You're not really laughing at it again. You're laughing at that first time you laughed at it. You remember,
Yeah, I agree. And that's such a good point about really about everything with that, but it also makes me want to be really careful about like not wanting to be one to be like, oh, the old version was so much better. This
right.
Because then I'm the Star Wars fans who came out in the late 90s and early 2000s with the prequels. And then I'm the Star Wars fans who came out the last few years with the 3 sequels. And that kind of fandom has made me very aware of those things and I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I think there's a time and a place where you can, like we can have a conversation about something the two of us really like, and we may have the similar experience. We can talk about it because we each have our own opinion about it. It's when you bring it out to somebody that has a different experience with it or no experience with it, and that's when you can be really obnoxious. Like, like I don't care what you think. Like, all right, you don't like it, don't. That has nothing to do with me. And that's when. So you're gonna have to pick your audience. You can certainly not like something as much as the original. You just have to really watch out about yucking on somebody's yum.
Yeah, like I think about wow, I totally forgot what I was gonna
That's okay.
say right there. Hey folks, don't get old.
Don't get old. Hey, let's talk about this. We talked about this a little bit the last time.
So you know what? I think that tips into something different than like a cult following, because Top Gun was huge. The new movie is really huge, but it is a play on nostalgia. And I hate nostalgia. I hate it.
It's a toxic impulse. Nostalgia is a toxic impulse. It has its benefits, but it's toxic.
I don't enjoy the feeling. I couldn't watch it. I had on Netflix, like this was the 90s. Yeah. I made it mostly through one episode and I couldn't watch anymore. For a myriad of reasons, I think I don't enjoy nostalgia. And I think it's like I'm never going to get those moments back that I really loved it during that time. And that to me kind of sucks. I can't relive my past. And I had to stop watching Karate Kid.
Cobra Kai.
I was really into it for a while, but then it just started like really like needling nostalgia. And I just had to stop.
Well, it also got ridiculous. It was like the first season, kind of tongue in cheek, but it was at least a little plausible. Now it's just crazy.
Yeah, because come on, how much can grown men care about a dojo? Like they're fighting over the Cobra Kai dojo, and they're going to these other guys. It's like, I'm bringing Cobra Kai back. Whoa, like it's that serious. Like nobody would say that if it was like a florist shop or a bakery or something like that. I'm bringing back sweet treats.
Also, these kids are getting really injured fighting.
Yeah, they're getting fucked
in the 80s. I believe that could have happened. No way does it happen now. A parent would stop that immediately. Immediately it would get stopped, or the parents would start fighting just like they do at baseball, like little league games.
Yeah, I've lived in small towns. I've lived in big towns, and you know what? None of them is like the whole town rallying around these hard opinions about a karate tournament. Mm-hmm. I just can't do it anymore. And it's funny because like the things I can suspend belief for in the movies, superheroes flying around, aliens from outer space, people shooting lasers out of their eyes, that I can go for. But the 4 middle-aged guys getting into a bar fight and kicking ass because they took karate 30 years before, No.
Yeah, no. Here's the thing. I watched Maverick. Back to Maverick.
And I plan on watching. I'm looking forward.
Yeah. And I'm not going to spoil anything. Don't worry. No one has to change their thing. But and I have to admit, Top Gun was not my favorite. I liked it, like everybody liked it. In fact, I'm at the age that it was probably one of the first movies that I saw with my friends. I remember going to the Plaza Theater, which I ended up working at a few years later, but going with my friends on a Friday night and really enjoying it, right? Action, that sort of thing. So when it was coming out again, I didn't really have a big urge to see it. My friend did. So when she wanted to go, we went to an early screening because it was available. And I enjoyed it, but it was, Jerrod, I don't think you're going to like it because I think it is going to hit the nostalgia button. They do a good job. They do a good job of coming up with sort of a plausible plot. It's kind of insane, right? Especially Jerrod, you understand military, so you're going to be like, no way would this friggin' happen. But no way would the first movie happen either. So, yeah. So it's it is what it is, but it does it kind of does a really good thing. It does the nostalgia. Like I really believe like a kid that has never seen the original could come in this and not miss a damn thing from the original. Like it quickly turns into its own plot,
Yeah, that's a good point. And from the military side of it, one thing I will say, like fighter pilots, the fighter jocks, they get portrayed as just these ultimate douchebags who are total dicks to everybody.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure there's plenty of the douchebag ones out there, but my personal experience with a lot of these guys is they're actually cool. They might be cocky and overly very confident, and I think you have to be to do a lot of what they do. Landing those things on aircraft carriers in the middle of the ocean, you've got to be a very confident person to do it. But you know what? They've always been cool. They've always been approachable. They like to bullshit with people. Other types of pilots have, in my opinion, been far douchier, like the cargo planes, the transport planes. Those are the ones who a lot of them, they think that they're above people. Not saying they're all like that.
Right.
Somebody watches this and is looking for a reason to be upset. And I'm sure there's been plenty of fighter jocks out there who are, somebody ran into one who's just a huge asshole to them, something like that. People talk about tail hook, that's fine. I will say from my own experience and the interactions I've had with them and I've seen them have with others, pretty cool. But military movies that have a lot of military buy-in are usually my least favorite ones. And I have a hard time with military movies anyways, because all I can do is sit there picking them out. Like that patrol, they're too close together, blah, 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 blah. The military movie that I saw that had the most military buy-in I've ever seen was Battleship. And that movie is so bad. It's so bad. Like, I want to do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 with that movie, with like one or two other comedians who were spent a long time in the military, because so much of it is so unreal and so bad, or just like so really trying to play for certain tropes. Oh, and I'm gonna stop now because that's one I could save for a whole episode all its own.
I wonder if Battleship has a cult following, but let's
so bad, and it's like based on the video, the board game. It's
board game.
Nothing at all like the board game, like because there's boats. That's the only way. Oh my God, that'd be like Willy Wonka at the Chocolate Factory saying it's based on Candyland. No, it's not even close. Oh, that movie is so goddamn terrible. It is so bad. Everybody around it should be ashamed of themselves.
Let me go back to Mr. Science Theater 3000. About 10 years ago, I think they still do them, but I went a real last minute thing. But they were doing those satellite things they do in theaters, and they were doing riff tracks. So it was a live. It was a live Mystery Science. It was the original. I don't think it was Riff Tracks, who's their kind of new, the original people that do it. I actually think it was Mystery Science Theater 3000. I can't remember, but I don't think I've laughed harder in the movie theater. It was like watching the old stuff, Jerrod, and I'm wondering why that hit. I think it was just better, and I think the idea of watching it live in a theater full of people was kind of unique, you know.
I'm sure it would be. And I remember in DC, a comedy club would do things like that. And I think that is my sweet spot when it comes to comedy too. Are those kind of jokes?
Yeah.
So like me watching that live I'd probably love it, and I'd probably also be kicking myself to say, why have I not initiated something on my own with this?
Yeah, it must have been because I've never seen Cinematic Titanic. I will say, excuse us who are watching that aren't improv nerds, but I saw at the Improv Festival I went a couple weeks ago. Chris George, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a one-person show, and what he does, he up his Netflix account. He has people. His ask is, "What genre you want?" He pulls up the genre, and then he tells everybody on the screen. And there's about 20 movies that's on the screen when you pull up the genre. He says, "These are the movies I haven't seen. Pick one of those." And then for the next 30 minutes, he does the vocal, he does the dialogue, he does the music, he does the sound effects for that show. And it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
That is such a brilliant idea. Now I want to do that, but I don't want to steal somebody else's.
I'm the same way, Jed. I'm totally the same way. I'm hoping we can bring him to Providence. Like I just was amazed. He did Red Notice, the new Rock and Gal Gadot and Ryan Reynolds movie.
Oh yeah, terrible movie.
It was horrible. He hadn't seen it, and I had seen it, so I think it was even more funny to know what it's supposed to be happening. And it was so funny. It is so funny.
Like that. I could easily develop a cult following for somebody doing that kind of comedy.
Yeah. So I just thought you'd appreciate that because it was like Mystery Science 3000, but they're all scripted. You know, they spend a lot of time scripting their movie thing.
Yeah.
He did not, and you know, it was pretty enjoyable. So, what else you got?
Well, I was kind of thinking because, like I said, I talked about things that had a cult following that turned into something bigger. A big one that goes back to your and I time frame was a certain band. And that band was 9 Inch Nails. A lot of people don't realize they came out pretty Hate Machine in 1989, but they didn't blow up off that same album. That album blew up, but not for a few years after that.
Because of that single. They had the one single off of I forget the name of the album, the big album.
Well, then they had like Downward Spiral.
Yeah, that's the album. Yeah.
They had those, but they went from.
No, I'm saying they were cult.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they had that album, and then that's where I think the cult gets upset. Like now everybody, you know, and music's a good case. I love indie music. I love finding an artist and I can go to a small little club and watching music, and it's me and like 20 people and we all know the songs, but nobody else knows them. And then when they explode, it's so frigging annoying because now I'm in the back row watching up on a big monitor. So with music, it cult following, it's kind of ingrained, and it really has some it has probably some of the most negative side effects because it changes how you can experience the artist, right?
And what was great was when 9 Inch Nails did blow up, because that first album, Pretty Hate Machine, had like a whole, eventually became a huge song for 9 Inch Nails. But because the internet wasn't really a thing yet, we didn't have to listen to those people who were bugged that they became big. It was great.
Right.
In 1995, there was a time when like every 3 or 4 cars had an NIN bumper sticker on either on the back window or on the just a regular bumper sticker. Huge. And they started out very cult following.
Yeah. And now he's writing music soundtracks. Well, as long as it's still in 9 Inch Nails. But
kind of does the same thing. And Nirvana was kind of the same way. Before Nevermind, they had an album that was released that was a small label, and they grew up massively. Although I have my own opinions on that too. That would probably be one that would go into our mythology episode. So I'll just stop right on that one.
And promptly forget it, so we'll never talk about it.
That's right. We if you could see the text conversations Ian and I have, what should the theme be? What were we talking about?
What were we talking
I
about?
don't remember. And I like put a bunch in a little notepad file and then not save it and just close it later on. What is this weird stuff?
Every week I forget to create the show. This is the first week that I remember to create it. Jerrod forgot that I created it. So
right.
we're a mess, people. getting, you know, once you hit 40s, you're done. You're done.
Yeah.
But
yes. So and I when I was thinking about this episode, like things that had cult followings, like you said, it's true. Like Amy said, there are cult classics, things with cult followings. Like one way the internet has, I know the internet. I probably sound like an old person when I say the internet, but it was such a drastic change in the way that doing a lot of things, blah 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 blah. Anyways, it changed the way that we see and inform opinions on so many things and how we can get exposed to them. And there are things now that have cult followings that I don't necessarily follow, but it has created an avenue for other cult followings. I think on Reddit, how long was that? 6 years ago, Slender Man. Like that was a cult following. Yeah. And it's gotten bigger. I think they even did a movie.
They made a movie and
stuff, but I still don't think it's gotten that big that you couldn't consider the following for it not to be a cult following. And I don't know if there's casual Slender Man fans. I'm not.
Oh, I think there's probably people that see. I think they were exposed to it from the movie and then think they're,
probably, yeah.
And the movie wasn't that great. I saw it in the theater and it wasn't that great. But the story of Slender Man is really spooky.
Yeah, spooky. And I think of like YouTube, like as YouTube stars and YouTube personalities started being created, and a lot of that moved over to TikTok. And I don't know if it's as much on TikTok with cult followings for things. Mm-hmm. I'm going to come back to that. When it comes to cult following personalities, I kind of feel that YouTube was that, and then people did get big and famous off of that. A lot of them people that I have never heard of before, because I just never. I don't think I'm as susceptible to personality-based cult followings. It doesn't make me good or bad or special or anything like that. I just think that's not what I'm into.
I've met too many famous people to get wrapped up in it. I think I was more wrapped up in as a kid. All right, a couple things. You're railing against internet in a bit here, right? You know that a lot of this. It's funny because we wouldn't even have this format if it wasn't for internet. So it really is a double-edged sword. I'm with you, and I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that, I'm like, it'd be better without internet. And then I'm like, but we wouldn't be able to do so much stuff.
I don't think it would necessarily be better. I just think that it made it initially more difficult for things that had cult followings to remain cult followings. Just too much exposure to it. But like I said, Reddit with Slender Man, YouTube stars, the people whose personalities create a cult following. With TikTok, and I'm not big into TikTok, but I feel like the cult followings in TikTok now are for, I'm trying to think of a way to put it, almost certain skills. Like one that I think became big was, things that look like a cake or don't look like a cake.
Oh, yeah.
Cake. Just people who are have very specific skills in things that some of them blow up and some of them don't. There was a time where I would have said, what are the songs that pirates would sing be called?
Shanties? Yeah.
I'd say that sea shanties, definite cult following. And then out of the blue, when everybody was locked down, became huge. And everybody's like, I like sea shanties. For anybody who was around in about 1998, out of nowhere, swing music became it became so big. And I don't know if you say that swing music necessarily had a cult following before that. Maybe there were some people who were really into certain big bands or whatever, but it was something that was small that just weirdly and for a short period of time blew up into something really big.
Yeah, it's I can't think of another type of music that came back that hard that had already been a thing. Like we've had a lot of genres that were new and became a thing, like ska and all that.
Yeah,
maybe reggae, but not like swing. Swing was like every household seemed to be listen to swing or taking lessons or both. It was crazy.
And I've got to say, it was kind of cool. I was kind of into it. Never took the swing classes, but some of it had that little cool swing sound or whatever. And Brian Seitzer Orchestra and the Squirrel Nut Zippers out there. And then it just disappeared. Just gone.
And I'll be honest, some Brian Setzer Orchestra comes on, I enjoy it. I don't turn the channel.
Yeah, like for bands that I've been to concerts for, like if a Weezer song comes on, I might listen to it. I might change the channel. But honestly, Brian, one of those old swing ones comes on, I'm probably
Cherry Poppy Daddies.
Cherry Poppy Daddies. I
stand.
The volume's going up, but the windows are also going up because I do feel shame for how much I would enjoy it.
Yeah.
Oh, Amy from the Big Bad Voodoo Daddy.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm sure. That's the thing. That's the other thing. Sometimes the cult happens after they become the popular thing. And I would say that may be one of them.
That's a really good segue into this comment right here. Because I think there are some things that did become very popular or had been very popular, then kind of went away for a while, and then for whatever reason came back, and it's almost a cult following. So a good example, I think, would be Queen. I remember I was in high school when Freddie Mercury died, and all the concerts, and his music was so familiar after certain games. I played a lot of sports in high school, so most of my teams didn't win. But on the rare occasions that we did win, maybe singing "We Are the Champions" on the way back, and then it kind of disappeared. Then the movie came out, and a bunch of these younger kids really got into it. And I've got to think that there are some people who maybe got into it in more of a cult following thing than in the big popular one. And I gatekeep. I can't help it. I gatekeep, and my gatekeeping for Queen is absolutely from Wayne's World. Because my sister and I both loved that movie, and we watched it many times. And Bohemian Rhapsody comes on, and if somebody says they like Queen, even if they're singing along with Bohemian Rhapsody, if they don't start the headbanging part, they are not.
They are not. Well, and here's something about Queen that I think is interesting. I think it was popular in the 80s, and I wasn't big into movie in the 80s, so music in the 80s. Like, it's funny, I was in choir and really liked music, but I wasn't. I liked a few bands, but I wasn't. If I didn't know them, I didn't know them, and I didn't know Queen. I think I had heard "We Are the Champions" because it was at every sporting event and all that stuff. So I missed it. But then Wayne's World came on, and that's where I discovered Queen. So it's almost like it had its initial following, then it had the Wayne's World, and now it's having had a resurgence and that sort of thing. It's kind of interesting.
Bohemian Rhapsody shot up the charts again when Wayne's World came out. So it's kind of weird. Like, the Queen movie comes out, and Queen has this massive resurgence and everything. Elton John movie comes out, and there was, my kids never talk about the Elton John movie, about Elton John or anything like that. And I don't know, maybe it's because he's still alive and still touring.
Maybe, and just a hell of a lot more music. Like, you can always hear an Elton John before he was, and with Queen, it was a little bit harder. Now you can't, it's rotation. Very interesting this week. Have you watched Stranger Things?
No. So Stranger Things is something I had to stop watching because
nostalgia.
I not even the nostalgia. I was like, Stranger Things is big. I must be missing out on something. I watched it. I watched the whole first season. I started watching the second season, and then it hit me. I'm like, I'm not even enjoying this. I'm gonna stop now. I did the same thing with Breaking Bad. Watched the first season because I heard it was great.
Yeah,
I'm like, why am I still watching this?
I got through 5 episodes of Breaking Bad and stopped watching. And a lot of it was, I didn't think it was going to be as good as everybody said. I think it was just a little bit hyped. I wasn't getting it. And also, there were too many episodes. It was a full season, and there were so many. I was like, I can't watch 70 of these episodes. Like, I'm just not interested. But I'll say this is my point about Stranger Things. So the new series just hit, and they use a song by Kate Bush, who arguably not a huge artist in America. She's British, huge artist in Britain. The Duffer Brothers used her song, Running Up That Hill. It is charting in America right now. It's charting. So talk about nostalgia. Talk about, I would argue, Kate Bush in America was a cult following. I enjoyed her, and now here she is, 40 years after writing that song, and it's on the American charts for the first time.
I was thinking, because we were talking a little earlier about the comedy and
Yeah.
cult followings with comedy. And I do enjoy Mystery Science Theater 3000. I have a hard time with comedy, and I'm a comedian, but I have a hard time getting into comedy. And I find a lot of things, I give it such a chance to have cult followings, and I just can't. Like Mr. Show, I think would be a great example of like cult classic TV show that comedy nerds might really be into. Does nothing for me. Kids in the Hall. I'm going to say something very controversial here. Kids in the Hall, my favorite sketch ever done was a Kids in the Hall one. And they had a few that I thought were excellent. A lot of them I did not enjoy. If I had the option of watching a Kids in the Hall show or not, I would choose not, because I really didn't enjoy them. Started watching it when it came out again recently. I just don't. I respect the comedic concepts that they come with, some funny ideas, but the execution to me just ends up not being funny. But you talk to somebody who likes Kids in the Hall, they really, really, really like Kids in the Hall. And that's a weird, like, it's nostalgia and all kind of, I don't know. I don't remember if they were they so big in the late 80s, early 90s that you could say that they weren't a cult following.
See, but here's the thing. Couple things. You bring up some great points. I think a lot of people, my comedy, I'm going to like it a lot more if I discovered it or I'm at the early point. I never like coming to comedy after it's already been like, I want to maybe this is true of everything, but in particular comedy, if someone says it's really, really good, like for example, never, ever, ever listened or watched Comedy Bang Bang. And I know a lot of people that I respect and comedians love that show. They're coming to Providence, no interest. Scott Ackerman, I've heard him on podcasts because he does Earwolf, and he does not make me laugh. Kind of annoys me a little bit, and I know that's a controversial thing, but I think I probably would have liked it if I had discovered it when everybody else was discovering it, right? And then and then the other thing is, let's talk about Kids in the Hall. Let's. So again, I think it was very small and created a buzz, and then it went off the air, and then for years and years and years, people watched those. It's just like, and you could say this with Monty Python too. You don't have anything new. You watch it. You find it, and it builds and builds and builds. If you were never part of that, and then you go and watch it, you didn't get that building. It's just, oh, okay.
Yeah.
The hype. I mean, once you hype, in comedy especially, if you hype comedy, it's the kiss of death. That's why it kills me when people, I hate it when people start telling me comedy bets I haven't seen yet. Like, I'm like, if you want me to see that, don't tell me the bits. Just say, go watch it. You're going to like it. And then we can do the bits after, because you ruin it. You ruin it. There's no surprise to it. I anticipate it's coming, and then it's never as funny as I probably would have thought it the first time.
Yeah, I have a lot of very strong opinions both on comedy and how people feel about comedy.
Yeah.
Like, but to go back to Kids in the Hall real quick, I will also say that any bigness that they achieved was in reruns. Even by the time it was they were done. What, 91, 92? I don't think they were putting out new episodes that far after that, were they?
But I do think
after that is what a lot of people were really seeing.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's the thing is like, and this is before streaming. I think it was it an HBO show originally? I can't remember. I think it was on a paywall.
Comedy Central Times.
Something, and people watched it, and there was definitely people that enjoyed it. Yeah. Not really mainstream, but a lot of people enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and then it became accessible, and it became accessible, and that's when the majority of people. So it does seem like it was, but for a comedy in the 80s, a sketch late night comedy show, it had a pretty good following, but then it became out of the control because It was HB show, yeah, originally from.
Was HBO okay?
Yeah.
But Amy got. So yeah, I don't think it blew up until it got on Comedy Central.
Oh, I agree. Well, the other thing she says is from CBC, so it also had a Canadian following. Then it had an HBO following, and then it was Comedy Central. So it was building, but I think people know that know it from Comedy Central.
So big opinion time coming from Jerrod.
Uh-oh.
I find I'm not really into Canadian comedy. I find there's a lot of Canadian comedy out there that it like feels like you should be into it. I feel like I'm supposed to be into it, but I never end up really enjoying it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it is. I mean, comedy is relative, and if you just don't feel, it all depends on your experience and that sort of thing. I'm trying to think of things that some British leaves me cold. Some British comedy leaves me cold.
British comedy I used to really dislike because it was very predictable, and you watch shows. Even the old Whose Line Is It Anyway? I found a lot of the jokes that they tell were the same. It was the same punchlines that we were telling as little kids in the schoolyard. A lot of it was very predictable and just retelling old jokes. I will say that now I think there's so many really great British comedians. He passed away about a year ago. My favorite comedian was Sean Locke. He was just a hilarious guy, right up my alley. The type of like being very funny, and it's different than comedy. I think it's the skill of being funny that I respect the most is conversational funny. People who can go on a show as a guest, people who can be on a round table or something and be really, really funny. I think those are the most naturally work very hard at coming up with material. I think it's great. They come up with a lot of material. And it's probably because that's not what my strong suit is. I try to be more of that conversational funny guy, be the funniest guy in the conversation type of thing. So when I see professional comedians who are so good at it, which is where Sean Locke to me is, I am just beside myself in that type of skill that he has. But there's a lot of very funny British comedians now. I think Jimmy Carr's stand-up is actually very, very good. And for a long time, British stand-ups were not very good.
Yeah.
And
so I will say this. I came to learning how to perform comedy later in life. And probably before that, I just appreciated comedy of it either made you laugh or didn't. Right? I mean, that was kind of my thing. But now I'm more nuanced because I'm like, oh, look that was really difficult to do. Maybe it didn't land like it made me haha, but I really appreciate what they did, or I really appreciate that. So I think my opinions of certain comedy has changed. I'll still say I don't think it's that funny, but I will say as an arts form, it's really creative and I appreciate it. And I enjoy watching it because now I'm okay. It's not making me laugh, but I'm really watching like how this is coming off.
I'm with you like 3/4 of that, like 75% of that. I'm with you because that's my kids in the hall opinion. I think a lot of, like I said, some of the themes very clever, very smart. Great idea. I could see the part of sitting around the table coming up with the ideas. The talking glory hole. Great idea, and then the execution of it just for me never lands. Yeah. And because it's supposed to be comedy. And my expectation of comedy is that it makes me laugh, is that it gives me the ha-ha that I just can't be into it. So maybe a good way to kind of
wrap it up,
describe my thought on that is a movie that is a very funny movie that has a lot of very funny scenes that a lot of people have shit on because it's, they don't see it as very sophisticated. And that's Dumb and Dumber, the original one that came out in 94. Now, you watch the movie, there's a lot of like pratfall type of comedy in there. Just the not very sophisticated bits and pieces of it. But there's also a lot of very sophisticated comedy that's in it. And most importantly, there's a lot of moments that make you say ha ha. I like being able to be unpredictable and make people laugh. Those give you the biggest laughs in any comedy. Whether it's live, if it's stand-up or whatever, the biggest laughs you'll get are the unpredictable jokes. when I watch comedy now, it's very easy for me to be like, I saw that one coming. See it coming from a mile away. Or it comes and it's like, of course, that's exactly what it was going to be. You go back to a movie like that was very funny, did manage to surprise you with the jokes, which is a difficult thing to do. That is a sophisticated thing to be able to do in comedy. And it's hard to do that. A lot of people, you look at edgelords, people try to be too edgy because they're trying to catch you where you weren't expecting it. And that's usually bad. It's usually not funny when you see that, when people are doing it. It's like, okay, you tried to be edgy and instead you were just racist. Or you tried to be edgy and you were just, punching down and shitting on people. And
right.
Honestly, not very funny. And I will say, if it's something is funny, you can get away with a lot more when it's actually funny. But to be able to be edgy and funny and unpredictable, that's very hard. That takes sophistication to be able to do. That's why I think a comedy like that hit all those wickets. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised that hasn't come on later with more of a cult following. And I don't know if it's because they've tried a couple sequels that really didn't hit, but that was something that was very good. That was not cult following. It was, popular following, a little body type of following on it. Yeah. And it's kind of gone away. People have, in a sense, forgotten about it. And it was done. That should have a cult following now.
I agree.
That's something but I'm not willing to get too into it. I can enjoy it greatly for what it is, but I can't be, like talk about what Jim Carrey's career looked like on both sides of that, or how different it was than everything else Jeff Daniels did, and diving deep into that. Can't do it.
So let's bring up this, because I think this is interesting. I think spoofs are really hard to do, and I think people are lazy with spoofs. I'm looking at you, Scary Movie. I think you could throw anything at the wall and see if it sticks, and there's going to be, I think the theory is there's something for everyone, but that saying. But I have seen some spoofs that really work. One of my favorite all-time one is the Grey Gardens episode of Documentary Now. I don't know if you have to see Grey Gardens, about the distant Kennedy relatives, really strange mother and daughter living in this abandoned mansion. And they do a spoof on, it's not shot for shot, but they really take the themes and just make it that much funnier. And it was just great. But you could tell it took them time, and they spent their time really, really in the writer's room going, okay, how do we do this? And they've done them all. I like Documentary Now a lot. I haven't seen a lot of the documentaries that they're based on, and I think you get more out of it, obviously, if you see the source material. I have to admit, and then I'll finish with Naked Gun, and then Jerrod can join in. But has anybody seen a Naked Gun movie and laughed? Yeah, I have. I don't think they're the best things in the world. But I do. I don't think they need to be like. I think. What was the show? Police Squad, something
Police
Police
Squad
was better because it was a series and a half hour. Like a half hour is plenty of time for that kind of humor. An hour and a half, maybe a little bit much, but I did like it. I liked Airplane too. I don't know. I was also a kid when I saw these, so maybe it doesn't hold up.
Which is when I think those are at their best, because I think spoofs are very easy to do, and spoofs are very hard to do well. And we've seen that with so many of them that have come out. And there's some things like when I perform, one of my favorite things to do is doing something in the background away from the main scene that isn't taking away from the main scene, but is also its own funny little bit. And some spoofs will implement that and do that well. There was Hot Shots was one with Charlie Sheen that would do that pretty well in there. But I do think that, a lot of them are things that it's like, oh, you're supposed to laugh at that. You're supposed to laugh at that. Like they're designed to have a big light that says laugh and all the parts that you're supposed to laugh at. And it's a lot of miss. But I also think it's very difficult to do a comedy that is the length of a movie and be funny throughout. That's why something like Mystery Science Theater 3000 can work well, because there's still a movie that it can generate an actual plot. Because you need a plot. You
need a plot. In those spoofs, they're taking it. They don't care about the plot. They just
exactly they will try to generate one, but really they're just these loose storylines that are there to kind of feed more little one-liners and everything into it. And it's like you said, a half hour of that would be hilarious, but God, a full movie of it, it's just really hard to make it work.
Yeah, but they make a ton of money, so they're going to keep greenlighting them. And
there's a lot.
Kids love them. Kids love them.
Kids love them. That's when I love them the most. I also think that there are a lot of people out there who really get into predictable comedy. Like, I think Jeff Dunham has done some funny stuff with the puppets and everything. But when he's not doing them and he's doing his shtick, it's very predictable comedy. But a lot of people love it. A lot of people.
Yeah. Well, he's safe, and a lot of people love seeing the same thing over and over again. I hate it with comedy. Like, I never want to go to a comedian I've already seen their show. As much as I'll go to a concert over and over again with a comedian, I won't. Amy, I love Johnny Dangerously. I just needed to say that. I love it. Oh my God. Friggin' Michael Keaton. Yeah.
I will say comedy is the most difficult to enjoy while rewatching.
Mm-hmm.
And people who will watch the same comedy over and over and keep laughing at everything, the same one, I think they are they suffer from some sort of mental issue. There's no two ways about it. Like, I can watch an action adventure movie over and over, and it's like, okay, I'm into it. Or just a good movie, a good plot, I get into it. But once I watch a comedy too many times and I cannot continue to laugh, there's just not enough there for me to stay interested. And it kind of funny.
Well, but I will say this. The ones that I do like, there's something about, like, I could watch Spinal Tap anytime. It doesn't, and I think it's because I enjoy the characters so much and that it's nuanced and I can see new things. But it literally, I can watch it. And then there's comedies that are plot driven, and I'll watch it for the plot. I'm not going to laugh the same way, but if they did a really good job at the plot, it's like watching an action adventure movie. You're getting something else out of it. So those are the two caveats.
Yeah, well, it's like, a big thing you'll see is people say you can never make Blazing Saddles again today.
No,
and it's like, I wouldn't want to watch it again today because I already know all the jokes from it and I've laughed at them already, and they're just not there for me anymore. TV shows are weird about that. Like, if you give yourself enough time to forget all the jokes, you can watch it again and it's funny again. The Office had enough that it can be rewatchable. And I will say it, the first time I would watch it, I was like, this is so funny. The second time I would watch it, I was like, this is so cringy. It's all cringe comedy and cringe humor. And I didn't enjoy it as much. But now, little bits and pieces, I can appreciate a bit that comes from it. But I appreciate it in short video clips, not an entire half-hour episode of it. I think it's something like Cheers. I think I could rewatch Cheers because I've forgotten the jokes.
Well, right. I mean, that's the thing. If it's new to if it feels new. I will say this when it comes to The Office, Parks and Rec, Abbott Elementary. I always have a hard time with these shows, and I always start not liking them, and then they turn into my favorite shows because I always forget. I got to give them 2 or 3 episodes so I can understand the characters and who they are to one another, because it's too cringy. I just don't like it. It can be, especially The Office was very mean-spirited at the beginning, and I just was like, no, like Michael's stupid. Like, that's how I felt. Dwight's just insane, Jim's being mean, all that type of stuff. But then I watch it because I think that's the thing is these, by definition, these mockumentaries or documentary format are based on relationships because it's capturing the relationships. So that's relatively new. Cheers was like relationships, but not in that way, right? You didn't get huge. You didn't get the confessionals and things like that, Yeah.
You're right. And Cheers was still set up for a lot of individuals, Norm, Cliff, whatever, making their individual joke. And you're right. Like the real and anybody who does improv knows that comedy in that world is about the relationships. And scripted media has, in a lot of ways, not done a great job of following along with that. And, you're right. Like something like The Office did a good job of making the relationships. Because when the relationships are where the comedy's coming from, it's an endless well. You can go to it forever. But I do want to bring up one comment here.
What's that?
So, Michael, very handsome. He uses his picture there. He's disgustingly handsome. So he's both right, but I do have to say, he and I work together, and I am the one who, whenever anybody in the middle of conversation says something about my wife, I always interrupt with my wife, because that is timeless and classic.
But it's also your thing. It's you've stolen it, and I've always said if it's funny once, it's funny 10,000 times. So it may not be funny the first 5 times. Get to 10, it's gonna be funny.
But that brings up a great point about comedy in general. So being a funny person, we've all met the people. I think it was Mad TV did a whole sketch on this where somebody was funny and all they were really doing was just saying well-known funny lines from movies. And that does a great job of going into the comedy that I don't like, because that just, it's funny when you can bring it out and it's apt and it works, but when it's over and over, it's not funny. The movie Baby Geniuses. Bet you didn't think we were going to talk about Baby Geniuses tonight. The reason
I don't know, cult following,
and it's a terrible movie. And people love it, but every bit of comedy in that is just pulling something that was funny in some other situation, and now it's a baby saying it. The baby doing the behave and things like that.
That's the worst because it's taking from another movie.
Yeah. Performances that do that are much worse than individuals that do that.
Yes.
Hey, look, if I'm with somebody and they do find the right time to put an Austin Powers line in where it's funny, I'm gonna laugh. That's gonna be funny because it was a surprise in that moment to go in there. But when other comedy performances, which are a gigantic spectrum, when they're just doing that, no,
even if they're the ones that created, it could be hacky. Like if you're watching someone that created the tagline and they do it on their stand-up set, it's not a guarantee that it's going to work. I'm like, oh my God, are we still doing this?
Yeah, the old Bart Simpson. I didn't do it, which is making fun of his own stuff from before the whole "Eat My Shorts" man, things like that. That then ended up on T-shirts, and then he couldn't say anymore because it wasn't funny because everybody was into it at that point.
Yeah, that's what she said. I don't think there's a bigger, in the last 20 years, phrase that just got appropriated by everyone.
Yeah, that's one. I'd say The Office did a great job of bringing that back because that, holy shit.
Yeah, because I remember it was a joke when I was in college in the 90s. Like people would say it, and then all of a sudden, and then Michael kind of used it a little bit. Like it wasn't always the right way to use it. It was
right.
Yeah.
But the role that his character is playing too was one of the hacky, somebody who's not very funny, but believes that he's funny by doing those type of hacky things that we're talking about. Just always doing lines from other movies or something that he read somewhere else. It's like the tell me a joke people, and it's just the same jokes that we've all heard over and over our entire lives.
I do say I say movie quotes every once in a while. I try to pick ones that aren't as known to see if people can pick up on where it came from.
Oh, you fucking snob. Oh, my God.
I did it.
Oh, when you're saying something and somebody says something and I don't know what movie it's from and I keep going, I'm like, oh, you don't know that line? I just like, no.
I won't correct them. No. I don't correct them. I'll just say it. If they don't pick up on it, I just let it go. But I'm really respectful when someone says, oh, that's from. So I don't make anybody feel bad about it. but I do. If I'm going to pick a movie that I see, that a line I see from a movie, it's not the most popular one.
I'm glad you don't make people. You're not in it to make people feel bad about it, because I'm in it to make people feel bad about doing it.
I know you are. I know
Big
you are.
part of my personality.
I know you are. That's why I will use movie quotes you will never know, and I'll do it all the time, and I'll never tell you I'm doing it, because if you catch on, you're going to make me feel bad.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
I'm protecting myself.
Fortunately, I've got a terrible, terrible memory, so there's a very good chance you will do it to me. And I told you.
I don't know if you remember, but we established that we have bad memories at the top of the show.
I forgot about that completely.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, it's just,
See, now that's good humor right there.
That comedy, people.
That's comedy. See what we did? We did. Yeah, that was a yes and. That was a yes and. I set Jerrod up, and he went with it. Anyways, all right. I think it's time for plugs, huh?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Anybody and just for you new folks, anything that you have to plug, we'll read it on here. Let everybody know what's going on. I am. Let's see. I am off this. I have a very busy weekend. I'm taking an improv class tomorrow at the Contemporary Theater Company. It is their improv festival, and they're doing they're teaching this company from Atlanta is going to teach a form that they have is musical improv without accompaniment. So if you don't have someone that plays piano, you can still do musical improv. And that I love musical improv, so I'm excited about that. So I'm taking that. I'm seeing Bon Iver on Saturday. Don't know much about him, not a huge fan, but my friends are going, so I was like, yeah, I'll go. So so that's my weekend. And then next Friday, I will be on the Pig Stage, Providence Improv Guild, 7 p.m. At 95 Empire, AS 220 for Netflix and Chull. We put together an improvised movie in about 40 minutes, and we've been having a lot of fun. It's goofy, silly. So come out and see me the 17th of June.
So my plug this week, I don't have any for this weekend because I am flying out to watch my youngest daughter graduate high school.
Nice.
So, yes. So a little real life
Congrats.
stuff. Hannah, she is just a little awesome kid. I'm so lucky with the kids that I have. But don't worry, I won't spend the whole show talking about how big I am into my kids. They are pretty rad, but I won't bore everybody with it. But she's graduating high school, which both makes me feel even older, but also like good for her. You know, smart kid. And it just, the whole going on to the next phase of your life thing. I know I couldn't wait to do that. I was impatient for that when I was younger, just that anticipation. So I'm really happy for her to be able to do that. That's such a big, cool step in life right there. It's really just a huge leap forward into adulthood when you leave that school setting that you've been in, you know, since you were 4 or 5 years old to then get out of that. And just in case, I will tell everybody right now the advice I always give kids when they graduate from high school, just in case you know some of your own. When you're 17, 18 years old, you don't have to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. It's okay not to. I would still recommend getting some college in you. You don't have to go to Harvard or Yale right after. Don't press yourself into doing that. If that's what you want, do it. But if not, I'd still recommend taking some classes, going to community college. You can find ways to do that without spending any money, because having that degree will open doors for you. It'll open doors for you beyond just the degree that you have. But you don't have to walk in knowing what you want to do for the rest of your life. There's going to be times where you're going to feel trapped. Don't feel trapped. Just keep on plugging away.
Do your thing.
That's good advice I give to kids when they graduate.
And I'm a product of community college, and I went on to get a master's degree. I was not a great student, didn't know what I wanted to do at 18, because who knows what they want to do at 18? I mean, you think you do, but do you really?
Yeah.
And so, you know, my parents were smart. They said, you can live it free from home if you are always taking a class. I took classes for 4 years at community college, never got the associate degree, and then transferred in, and the rest was history. I found what I like to do. And so Jerrod, you're absolutely right. I co-sign that 100%.
And I tell you, like, I've worked in corporate gigs, working around other people making the good money, making those 6-figure salaries. And while, a lot of them do have degrees, it's not very uncommon that people are doing jobs with degrees that have nothing to do with their job.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised at how much that happens. That's why I think just having some college in you is a good reason.
It's a good
thing for that reason. But you don't have to know when you're 17, 18 years old, you don't have to know I want to be a proctologist and then, push forward doing every class so you can achieve your proctology dream.
And then you find out you don't like butts.
What a terrible way to discover you don't like butts.
I thought I like butts. I don't like butts.
It'd be terrible to find out.
Yeah.
And then when I get back next Friday, I'll be at Bring Your Own Improv at 7 and 9 at the Warwick Center for the Arts. We've got Amy's plug going up there. She is always smart about always finding a way to plug her stuff.
So her Ocean State Improv Festival is on Saturday night. She corrects that, nothing. So, and I want to talk a little bit about Ocean State Improv. It's at the Contemporary Theater Company in Wakefield, Rhode Island, my hometown. And every night from Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, there are shows going on from improviser groups from around the world. I'm not kidding. They have European groups. They have it's from everywhere. So if you've never checked out a comedy, an improv fest is a fun way to do it because you get to see a lot of different groups and find what you really like. If you have seen an improv group, CTC puts on a fantastic festival, very, very welcoming. So and then Amy's show, whatever fate decides, is improvised tarot card readings with the great Neil Leahy. So come on out. I'll be there tomorrow or on Friday, and I may see a couple shows.
One thing I will say about CTC, I performed there once. That is one of the best performance stages I've ever performed.
Jerrod, they just rebuilt it.
Really?
It's unbelievable. It's even bigger and better.
Wow, it was just a perfect space for comedy.
Yeah, they spent COVID expanding, and you wouldn't even recognize it now. I drive by it all the time. And it was all built by their community, which is amazing. Like
that's great,
and so I really wanted to help, but I just couldn't get it together, and I'm not handy. I would have broken it. But I'm excited to actually see it. I've only seen pictures on Facebook, so another reason. And it's across the street from Brickley's Ice Cream. I think the best ice cream in Rhode Island, if not the world.
Did you ever perform there? Did you ever perform at OSIF?
Oh yeah, we Whatever's Cool performed, and for a while.
Whatever's Cool didn't perform there.
No, it wasn't Waiters for Cool. You were on Waiters for Cool.
It was an old Real Mature team.
Real Mature, yeah. Real Mature, yeah, you're right.
But when you perform there, then you know that I'll tell everybody else. When you perform there, the performers pass that you get there, you show that at Brickley's Ice Cream, you get a discount on your ice cream.
It's true. And Brickley's is some of the best ice cream. It's worth even full price. If you can get the discount, do it. But it's worth even full price. So Amy, get some ice cream when you're down here.
Definitely got to do it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I think that's everything. Yeah. We'll be back in 2 weeks, hopefully.
You know what? I think if there's one thing everybody can take away from this episode,
this is just wrong. This is just wrong. I can't, Amy. No. You
don't have to put up all the controversial opinions.
I needed to. That one hurt inside. But go ahead.
One takeaway for all of our loyal fans out there from this episode: remember, figure out whether or not you like butts before you go and get fully educated in proctology.
Proctology, yeah, it's a life lesson.
Once you're a proctologist, it's tough.
You're going to be dealing with butts.
Tough to drive a forklift after that. Yeah, it's tough to avoid butts as a proctologist.
Yeah, I mean, again, just because you are a proctologist doesn't mean you can change careers, but it seems like maybe that is a lot of studying and a lot of expense to find out you don't like butts.
And what are you going to do with all that butt knowledge if you're not a proctologist?
Right.
You can't like be sitting in a bar hanging out and just being like, hey, you guys know this about your rectum?
Yeah. No one's going to want to hear that.
Nobody.
That is a horrible dinner party subject, and you're going to want to say it because that you know all about it. You're probably the one that knows most about butts in your friend group, but they're not going to want to hear it.
Well, it's a terrible icebreaker. You can't. But I will tell you, I'm also an awful person. I wish I knew a proctologist. I wish I had one in my friend group because then whenever we were together, I would make up something like some outrageous lie about butts.
Yeah.
Just to compel them to have to feel like they'd have to chime in and correct me.
I think it was your long game to get one of them to be a proctologist just to prove you wrong. I think that was your long game. Yeah. Yeah. Good call.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah. And Jerrod, we need to perform soon. So let's do that.
We do. We had a great set when we performed, and then we just, although it was the last episode, we had a bunch
I know.
of
We got to do that. And it's funny. I was talking to Peter this weekend. They're really hurting for indie teams. So let's do that.
Yeah. Somebody else will have to organize it because Lord knows I'm not going to.
Yeah. Where's Sam? I need Sam to organize.
Right.
All right. Everybody, have a wonderful week. I enjoyed our walk-on movie music so much. I think I'm going to put it on for the end.
Nice. Dance your way out, everybody.
You got to wait for the synthesizer.
The bird chiming in.
This could be our set. Here it comes. Here it comes. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you later.